Hi, everyone. So, as Gus said, I'm here with the wonderful team from PrEPster, and this is my first PrEP conference, and I'm having a wonderful time so far, so thank you all for that. Yes, my talk is called... I don't know how to use that. Do I just press that? Oh, I've gone too far now. I know I've done it. Oh, there we go. Beyond drugs into bodies, how PrEP is giving us the lifestyle we deserve. We've had a lot of talk this morning about facts and figures and cost-benefit analyses and statistical successes and so on. And so far, I've heard no mention of the human impact of PrEP, which for me is a primary impact. Thank you. Thank you, Stark. So this is what I'm just going to touch on really briefly in 10 minutes. And it starts from my understanding of PrEP as being a cultural phenomenon that is rooted in trauma. PrEP would not exist without the HIV and AIDS crisis, and we have to start from that point when we think about the impact of PrEP on particularly queer culture, certainly in the West and in London, where I'm from, in the 21st century. I'm just going to start by quoting a little bit of Vito Russo, who was a great AIDS activist in the 80s, who said that someday the AIDS crisis will be over. A brave group of people stood up and fought, and in some cases gave their lives, so that other people might live and be free. But I don't think we are free, and certainly where I come from in London, people are not living the free, open lifestyles that Vito Russo and everybody else who fought and died in the AIDS crisis was after. We're still living under such societal stigma, which we impose on ourselves through fear and shame around the gay sex and the queer sex that we're having. And PrEP is absolutely the first step in overcoming that. Through our desperation to tackle the HIV and AIDS crisis, it was reduced to a single line, which is drugs into bodies, drugs into bodies. But drugs into bodies doesn't address the soul of the body that you're putting those drugs into, and that's really what I want to talk about. So in 2016, the Daily Mail, which is a really horrible scumbag right-wing newspaper in the UK, wrote this really phenomenal article in which it labelled PrEP a lifestyle drug. It called it a promiscuity pill. Well, first of all, to them, I'm going to level the words of my hero and ancestor, George Michael, who, when he was caught cruising in 2002, turned to the journalist in question and said, "Fuck off, this is my culture." And that's absolutely what I want to say to anyone who is decrying... to anyone who is decrying or shaming us for using a pill that's saving our lives to facilitate our lifestyle. Yes, PrEP is absolutely a lifestyle drug, and we couldn't be happier for it. So that's me a year and a half ago, taking my very first PrEP pill in a gay bar in Soho, London's gay district. Some of you might have been there. Greg, you were there, weren't you? I got a standing ovation for taking my first PrEP pill. And I would just... And I'm getting another one now. And I would just like to say... I'd like to ask you, how many of you received a standing ovation for taking your first PrEP pill? Not in a conceited way, but because I want to get to the bottom of the fact that for me, PrEP was the access to the community that I needed and that I craved. I got a standing ovation for taking a pill because people were recognizing that I was taking agency over my lifestyle, over my queerness, and I was doing something proactive to put myself in the center of my queer experience in a way that we haven't been able to do until PrEP came along. So I just want to go through some examples of the community-building activism that I've taken part in with PrEPster, with ACT UP London, with iwantPrEPnow, and with some other random agencies and groups as well. So that's HIV Blind Dates, an event which challenged the stigma surrounding HIV. A guy who'd been diagnosed as HIV positive for almost 25 years said that it was better for him than 25 years of therapy. So there we go. That's us protesting Gilead in 2016. The slogan for that was "Chopped lives, not chopped liver." We were thinking about Hep C. It was great. That's my butt. Yeah. This was a great demonstration in Gilead's headquarters in London. The message is quite clear: pharma greed kills. This was leveling our anger at their pricing of PrEP being astronomically high in 2016. There's another one, you get the idea. And all these happy people, aren't they lovely? Do you know what? There's the Avengers. That's the next Avengers movie there. And I'm ending on that picture. Now, look, these pictures are all moments of activism, but they are also all moments of community building. And I would not have had that community. I wouldn't have those friends. I wouldn't have any of you without the opportunity to build those links that PrEP has given me. And I wondered if that had impacted anyone else I knew. So I did a little call out on social media where I said, how has PrEP impacted your social existence or your community life? And here's just a few quotes from random people from my social networks. One person said that PrEP represented sexual freedom for me and removed the fear of having gay sex. Can we just take a moment to think about one pill removing fear of gay sex? All of the trauma that is compounded through AIDS, through social stigma, removed in one pill. I think it's incredible. Another person said, it wasn't until PrEP that I felt I could have a sex life without stigma, or a boyfriend who wasn't afraid. It's opening up possibilities for new relationships. Another person said, there's less shame, there's more honesty about sex. I'm thrilled by it. Putting the thrill back into sex, I mean, come on. And finally, another person said, it unifies the community. It nurtures an open and honest conversation. And that, for me, is the crux of it. PrEP is bringing about conversations that we have been afraid to have in this community for the past 40 years. In undoing some of the trauma that we as a queer community are still riddled with because of the AIDS crisis and all of the other compounding traumas that we live with on a day-to-day basis, PrEP is giving us the capacity to live that freedom that Vito Russo was so fighting for, and in fact he did die for. We have not been allowed as a community to start to unpack that trauma until this point, and I find it absolutely remarkable that it's coming about through a pill. And that drugs into bodies narrative tries to tell us that we shouldn't be fighting for that. We're not dying anymore. We can live now. We have a normal lifespan, and therefore we've got nothing more to complain about. But as I said earlier, the key issue here isn't how long our lives are or how cost-effective our lives are. It's the heart and soul that we bring to those lives. And in facilitating the conversations, whether that's through community building and activism, as I've certainly done and as I'm sure many of you are involved with, or whether it's through creating a little queer fuck buddy polycule in Midwest America, which another friend of mine has done, through the power of uniting over PrEP, there are so many ways that this drug is absolutely transforming the lives of queer people around the world. So my message for this conference, I suppose, is to bear that in mind in whatever capacity your work in PrEP is focused on. This human impact is absolutely not a secondary or a tertiary thing to think about. It is a primary function of this pill. And whether you're a clinician or a nurse or an activist or just an interested person, bring that to your life, bring that to your experience of PrEP, and bring it to the conversations you're having with people who you are talking to about your sex lives. So, in the same week that California has announced that PrEP is now going to be available over the counter, and at the same week that Uganda has announced the revival, potentially, of a law which is going to punish homosexuality with a death sentence, please remember that queers have fought and died for the freedom that some of us are just finally beginning to experience thanks to PrEP and all of the wonderful work that we in this room and people all over the world are doing to give us the sex lives that we deserve, and in turn to relieve that shame and that trauma and that weight that we've been carrying around for the past 40 years. Don't let us, please, don't let us be forced into the drugs into bodies rhetoric that we have been pushed into for so long. I just want to end with another quote from a friend of mine who also started taking PrEP. He said, "When I first started taking PrEP, I thought I was taking an antidepressant. I didn't realize the amount of fear and anxiety that I'd been burdened with for decades until that was gone." So as I turn to this last slide and we see a group of happy people, this is that same night when I took my first PrEP pill. I mean, the look of joy on those faces, most of those people had never met each other before, but we shared something that night that is going to stay with us for a lifetime. We built that community, and we still feel that with us today. So I think that's probably all I've got to say. And I thank you for your lovely warm welcome and your reception, and have a wonderful rest of conference.